Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sarah, and this is Rink Rat Knits and Stitches, and I'm excited to have you here with me today. I'll be talking a little bit about knitting and cross-stitching on my channel, so I hope you enjoy. If I can figure out how to edit my videos, I will put the content or timestamps so that if you don't want to hear the knitting portion or the cross-stitch portion, you can skip ahead to what you want to hear. But this is my first YouTube video, so please bear with me. Hopefully they'll get better as they go on. So a little bit about myself. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I will do the typical Michigan thing and show you where that is on my hand. So that is in the western portion of Michigan. I actually grew up in the Northeast Detroit, Metro Detroit area, which is over here. So I live across the state from where I grew up. I am a pharmacist by day, and that is mostly so that I can pay for my yarn and crafting supplies. I wish I didn't have to work so that I had more time to knit and cross-stitch, but that is just part of adulting. I live here in Grand Rapids with my husband Tim and my cat Aria. I do say my cat because she came with me into the marriage. Tim is not such a fan, but we all get along, or we try to. So she might join us at some point because she gets a little squirrely, especially in the evening. Let's see. So today is Thursday, February 23rd. I probably won't get around to posting this until this weekend because I know I'm going to have some kinks to figure out. I am not technologically savvy, so this should be good for me. As far as my crafting journey, I grew up cross-stitching with my mom. She taught me how to cross-stitch from a pretty young age with some of those counted cross-stitch kits that you would get at Michael's or Joann's. And then later on, I learned how to do counted cross-stitch. And I found my local yarn store here in Grand Rapids, actually, because I was looking for a needlepoint store, and walked in, and there was all this beautiful yarn at the front, and my mom at the time was reteaching herself how to knit, and so we just picked up and looked at all the beautiful yarn, and I really haven't looked back since. So I kind of took a hiatus from cross-stitching when I became obsessed with knitting, and now I'm finding myself watching Flosstubes and getting inspired by other cross-stitchers, and so I'm really excited to kind of pick up some of my old projects and get back into the cross-stitching world as well. So I do plan to talk about both and kind of show projects from both realms that I'm working on. I am pretty much interested in all things crafty, especially fiberworks or things related to fiber. So definitely knitting and cross-stitching, as I've already said. I'm hoping to become a better sewer or sewist and making some project bags. One of my goals for myself this year is to sew a garment that I'm happy with and can wear with some of my hand knits. And I would also like to become a more proficient weaver. My mom and I both enjoy weaving on a rigid heddle loom, and so that's another goal I've set for myself this year as well, is to weave a project. So we'll see how much gets done by the end of 2023, but those are some of the things I'm hoping to accomplish this year. As far as my YouTube channel name, Rink Rat, I am a figure skater, and I grew up figure skating. I still skate to this day, which is really amazing and fun. I skate on an adult synchronized skating team out of the Metro Detroit area, actually. And so every week I spend 3 hours with my team on Sunday evenings practicing during our competition season. and have a lot of fun with that group of women, and it's really become a second family for me. So I spent a ton of time at the ice rink as a kid growing up, and my dad used to call me a rink rat, and I always thought that name was kind of funny. So when I had a email handle back in the early 2000s, when that became a thing, I was rinkrat2908 because my birthday's the 29th, and then I graduated from high school in 08. And so rinkrat has kind of just stuck with me throughout life. And so I thought it would be fun to call both my YouTube channel and my Instagram handle as rinkrat knits. And then I added on the and stitches part once I decided I was going to get more into cross stitching. So we are wrapping up our competition season at the end of this month. Actually, next week we'll be traveling to Peoria, Illinois, where we're going to be competing against 11 other masters synchronized skating teams across the nation for a place on the national podium. So things are ramping up as far as the skating season, and we're looking forward to that. And then once we compete at nationals, we get 6 months off. So we take the off season, enjoy some time off of the ice during the summer, and that's when I tend to dive back into crafting wholeheartedly, because I get a little bit more time back on my weekends. So today I figured I would kind of follow the normal format of showing some finished objects, some works in progress, as well as talking about some things that I'm interested in working on in the future. So I think I'll start with knitting because I have a lot more knitting in general to show. I'll probably do a separate video just going through all the different whips that I have that are languishing at various points. But I'm trying to be better this year about knitting my stash and getting some things off the needles and off the cables that they're currently using. But as far as finished objects, I don't have too many to show. Most recently, I would say my finished objects were a lot of gift knits that I had over the Christmas and holiday season. One of them I borrowed from my husband, Tim, and I can share that with you. So this is the Rafa's hat by Locatelli, which I think is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I knit this for Tim for Christmas, or to put in his stocking on St. Nick's Day, which is December 6th. So I guess that's kind of a fun story. Tim and I celebrate St. Nick's, which is something that neither of us did growing up, but that is how he proposed to me a couple years ago. Was he got us both stockings for St. Nick's Day and tucked my engagement ring in the toe. So now it's a special tradition for both of us to put together a stocking for each other on St. Nick's and celebrate that way. So instead of doing Christmas presents this year, we opted to just celebrate with stockings on St. Nick's. And I had this hat in his stocking. Granted, it wasn't finished at the time, which is kind of my MO. It was probably up to about here with the yarn still attached. I wanted to make sure it fit his head before I started doing decreases, because he does not like a lot of extra fabric or slouch in his hats. He prefers more of the beanie style. And so this is, like I said, Rafa's hat by Locatelli. The yarn I used is from Filato Studios, or Filato Fibers, which is in Traverse City, Michigan, so about 2.5 hours north of where we live. And I picked this colorway, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, because Tim and I took a vacation up to the Upper Peninsula this summer, and if you've ever been to the UP and seen like the Shipwreck Museum or anything along those lines, you know that the UP is sort of obsessed with the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. And if you've seen any pictures of the ship, this is a really accurate depiction, I think, with some of the rusty points in the yarn and then the different grays. But I was really happy with the way this turned out, and I think Tim is too. He wears it pretty much every day. It's pretty well stretched out at this point, but the yarn is beautiful. It's held up really well. It's squishy and soft and really comfortable, so I'm glad he likes it. So my next finished object that I was going to show is a baby blanket that I've made for my friend's first child, and as I sort of alluded to earlier, I tend to run behind on these things and procrastinate. So my friend had her first baby last August, and now she's had a second baby, and I hadn't finished the blanket for the first baby yet, so I figured I really need to get it in gear. And she and her husband and family live in Wisconsin, on the west side of Wisconsin towards La Crosse, so I wanted to finish both baby blankets before sending them off to her. But this is for her older son named Jack, and this is the Baby Honey Blanket by Craftling Designs. And so my friends have bees, and the theme for Jack's baby shower was Baby Bee, because their last name begins with the letter B, and then Joanna and her husband both enjoy the bee theme since they have bees and harvest honey on their property. And so I went with it kind of a bee themed for Jack's blanket. And the yarn that I used for this project is a fairly local yarn to Michigan called shepherd's wool from Stonehedge fiber mill. This is the ball band. This is one of my favorite yarns. It is a worsted spun wool, somewhere between worsted and Aran weight, I think. More along the lines of worsted, I would say. This colorway is called Roasted Pumpkin. And I just really love this yarn because I think it's amazingly soft for not being a superwash yarn. I really enjoy being able to support local as well, so I think it's awesome that they're from Michigan. I also made the other baby blanket that I'll show in a minute out of the same yarn in a different colorway, and afterwards kind of thought maybe it was a stupid idea to make baby blankets out of non-superwash wool because they can't go in the dryer, but my friends are really practical, and I thought they would really enjoy the idea of wool blankets for their kids, since it's such a good regulator of temperature. It's a little more rustic, so hopefully they won't be too annoyed that they can't throw them into the dryer. But I thought this would be a good stroller or car seat size. And I'm really happy with the way this turned out, especially after blocking. I think it looks nice and it feels really soft. So that is the Baby Honey Blanket by Craftling Designs for my buddy Jack. So that brings me to my next finished object, which isn't completely finished because I haven't woven in the ends or blocked it yet, but it's the next baby blanket, and it's living in a bag from Mrs. Brown's Bags. Let's see. So this blanket is called Blanket Rectangles, and it's by a designer called belovedLT that I found on Ravelry. Again, this is made with the same fiber or yarn as the last blanket I showed. So this shepherd's wool from Stonehedge Fiber Mill in Michigan. This colorway though, I think is called Lake Michigan. Nope, I think so. Great Lakes. So this is the Great Lakes colorway. It's this beautiful blue and green kind of heathered look, and I thought that the pattern of almost what look like bricks would pop really nicely with this yarn. So this is for Wes, who's actually my godson, which is pretty fun. And he was born right before Christmas, just a few days before Christmas. So I really need to get this finished up and pop it in the mail with the other blanket and send those over to La Crosse, Wisconsin. Both of these were really easy knits. I like baby blankets because they don't feel so overwhelming like a normal size blanket, and you don't feel like you're knitting forever. But they're a great meditative knit, especially if you're looking to knit something in front of the television, which is usually how I knit in the evenings. I had a couple more finished objects that I'm going to attempt to put in pictures for that were gift knits over the holidays. And I knit the Ode hat by Woolfolk design team for my husband's grandpa for the holidays. And I used the called for Woolfolk Tav, which was the first time I had used that yarn, and it was really beautifully soft and springy, and the cables showed up really beautifully in it. And Tim's grandpa is really crafty as well. He is a really talented woodworker, and every time we visit them in Wisconsin, where they live, he shares his many talents with us and is always more than excited to give us some of his handmade gifts. So this year for Christmas, he made everyone in the family a charcuterie board, which was really beautiful, and every single one was different and had different woods, and he keeps track of who he gives which project to and where exactly the wood came from and what number of project it is. So to me, it was really special to be able to give something handmade back to him, because I knew he would appreciate it as a crafter and understand the time that goes into it. So he's definitely very knit-worthy, and he was very excited with the hat that we made, or that I made and gave to him. And then I was also able to give Tim's grandma a shawl, a one skein shawl that I knit, and it was the Lone Skein Shawl by Locatelli, and I knit that out of less traveled yarn. I actually have a second skein of the yarn that I use. So this is less traveled yarn out of Phoenix, Arizona, and this is the Prickly Pear colorway on the Paloma fingering base, which is a 90% superwash merino with 10% silk, and it's just a really beautiful, soft, it's got that sheen from the silk. And Tim said his grandma really loves the turquoise as a colorway, and so when I saw this, it reminded me of turquoise, and I thought she would really like it. So I will attempt to put pictures in so that you can see those finished objects, but I don't have them because I gave them away. The Lone Skein shawl, I really love the idea of a one skein fingering weight shawl. I think with that one, my tensioning was a little funky because the stitches that you pull across weren't always even. I think they blocked out really well, thankfully. I was a bit nervous about how it was going to turn out, but I don't know if you'll be able to see that in the pictures or not. So I don't know if I would necessarily knit that one again. I would probably do the lightweight hipster instead. And then as far as works in progress for knitting, the project that I've been working on most right now is a project that I've wanted to knit for a long time, and it's with yarn that I've had in my stash for a long time as well, and it's called Cowboys and Angels by Isabell Kraemer. I don't have the best printer, but this is what the pattern looks like in black and white. And for this project, I'm using Neighborhood Fiber Company in their Studio DK yarn, and this colorway that I'm using is called Oliver. And I'm trying to remember when I started this. I think it was probably towards the end of January. I don't know if it was February yet. I've gotten really far, but I will attribute that to the giant garter section that's in here, which makes it easy to just go, go, go. But it starts out with this nice trellis, and then there's a few bobbles, and then the garter section, which is really wonderfully squishy, and I'm excited to wear that part. And I've just gotten to the part where the trellis starts over again. You can see the trellis pattern and the bobbles repeat. So this I'm hoping to have done with in the next couple weeks or so. I'm not the fastest of knitters, and things are going to be pretty busy next week, but we'll see. And that is living in a Shop Knitting Nelly bag, which if you ever are lucky enough to see her post that she's going to sell bags on Instagram, jump on it immediately because these bags are beautiful. This one I love. It's a winter bag, and I especially love it because there's ice skaters on it. I think this is a rifle paperwork fabric, but I'm not 100% sure. And then the back is just this beautiful evergreen checker. I have one other bag from her, and they're just, I think they're my two favorite project bags. They're lined, they're beautifully made, they're pretty to look at. I would definitely follow her on Instagram. Let's see. And then I have one other work in progress that I want to work more diligently at now that it feels like spring is potentially in the air. We live in Michigan, and it's the end of February, and we had a giant ice storm the other day, so I'm not confident that spring is on the way, but it's nice to think about. And this is a pitiful start, but I'll show it anyway. I actually took the needles off of it because I needed them for something else. This is Farmer's Daughter Fibers, which is one of my favorite yarn companies, and this is the colorway Dumpling, and I'm trying to remember what base, Moon Sisters, and the pattern that I'm working on is the Rivers and Winding Roads by Neilan. And I have loved this wrap since I saw it come out, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I immediately bought the yarn and the pattern, and I've wanted to knit it forever, kind of similar to the Cowboys and Angels. So I decided this is the time, and now that it feels like spring is potentially on the way, I definitely want to get moving on this, especially after I'm done with my other shawl. And it's living in this beautiful bag by Puff Stitch, which has some really cute bees and then a waxed canvas bottom. And I really love this bag as well. I love drawstring bags. I think they're my favorite, and this size I feel like is perfect. It's probably shawl size. Let's see. So, oh, and here's a tag from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. I don't think, well, I know it's not from that skein that I just showed you, but this is one of their ball bands. Let's see. And then I have one project kind of kitted up, I guess you could say, and ready to go. And I really want to join the Bougie Sweatshirt Knit Along that Young Folk Knits is hosting, and I know I'm way behind on joining. I think I pretty much just found out about it on social media a couple weeks ago, and I think it goes till the end of March, so I'm sure there's no way I'm going to finish this, but I think I can also join the Grocery Girls raglan knit along too, so I'm not too worried about it. And it is Tanis Lavallee's City Limits. Again, just black and white picture. And I have the original colorways that she designed it in from a kit that she sold when she released the pattern. So I don't know, it's kind of blowing out, but her yarns are gorgeous and I've wanted to knit with them for a while, and I'm excited to be able to incorporate all these beautiful speckled colorways into an amazing sweater. And I'm excited to give it a little bit of ease so that it does just feel like a bougie sweatshirt. So I think she called this like the Orion fade when it came out. I have a lot of stash that I need to work through because I used retail therapy as a coping mechanism during the pandemic. I worked in the Children's Hospital here in Grand Rapids, and things were really just unpleasant for a long time during the pandemic. And so I kind of coped with that by buying all the pretty yarn that I was seeing online, even though I didn't necessarily have time or energy to knit with it. So now I'm really excited to finally dig into those projects that I was so excited about with the yarn and make some things that I can wear. And so, sorry for the zipper. This is living in a project bag that I got when my mom and I went to Rhinebeck this past fall. This is from the Renninger Wool Company, and this sheep's name is Pearl, or also known as Pearly Foot Stump, and they are in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And I'm just kind of a sucker for anything with a cute picture of a sheep on it. And I hope to eventually have some sheep one day, which my husband thinks I'm crazy, but I do think it's eventually going to happen. So that's kind of what's on the docket as far as projects that I'm hoping to start next and really run away with once I finish up my Cowboys and Angels shawl. Let's see. So I think I'll probably just talk about cross-stitching now. That was everything that I've been working on lately as far as knitting, and I have, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of other whips that I'll probably just do a separate video to kind of do a whip parade and show you what else I have languishing that needs to get done and needs some attention. But for now, I will transition to cross-stitching. So I mentioned earlier that I cross-stitched a long time ago, like 10 years, I would say, and most of my cross-stitching, I think, were wedding announcements that I made for really close friends who were getting married right out of college. But I did make a few pieces when I was in pharmacy school, which, to be honest, I don't really remember cross-stitching when I was in pharmacy school. So it has been quite a while since I was in school, and I don't know, maybe I was just stressed or I'm repressing some of those memories. But I brought one of the fully finished objects, or pulled it off the wall to show, because it's one of my favorites, and I finished this back in 2013. Let's see if I can get this without a glare. And it says, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder," and this is a La Di Da pattern. And to be honest, I have no idea what fabric I used. I'm sure it was a linen, and I think I used all the called for threads. That's going to be a recurring theme when I talk about my older whips, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I would just go into like a local needlework shop and find beautiful patterns that I wanted to work on, and then ask them to help me pick out fabric, and they would be super helpful and cut everything out for me and measure it, but I have no idea who made the linen, what colorway it is, what count it is for most of these things, but that's okay. I'll try to keep better track moving forward on newer patterns. So the first cross stitch piece that I dug out that I started many moons ago is this one. And let me see if I can find the name of it. So it is a Bent Creek pattern, and it's just called Home. And they have a lot of these really cute smaller samplers with the alphabet, but then it calls out a larger word. And so I had actually intended to make this for a friend who bought her very first house at the time. And I'm trying to think of when I even started this, because since then that friend, who moves a lot, granted, but she has lived in various cities in Michigan and now Florida. So I think I started this probably well over 10 years ago, and I was excited to be able to pick something up and not be intimidated by starting a new project. And I was able to find all the threads and the chart, so that was great. So I think what I had done previous to this most recent go around of working on it was the trees in the house, the star, I think A through C, G, and then H, O, and that might have been it. So since I've picked it back up again, I've worked on the M, the heart, all these letters down here, R, S, T, U, Y. So I'm excited to see this one get some work done on it again, and I don't anticipate that it will take too much longer to finish it, but I'm not really in any hurry to finish any of these. And it is living in a project bag by Little Boat 88, and I think I heard about Little Boat 88 on Flosstube maybe in the last couple months. And I just really liked this cat pattern. It's got the vinyl front, which I'm a big fan of, so then you can see exactly what's in your bag. So that is the first project that I picked back up and started working on again. The next project I have is a new start. Actually, I was excited to start working on a new project, and I purchased this kit from Treehouse Fiber Arts. I don't know if you watch their Flosstube channel, but Floss Toss with Sue and Rachel. And so Rachel runs a shop online out of her house, and she was having, I think she was trying to get more knitters involved in cross stitching, which I think is really cool. And so she had this kit listed, and sorry for the Velcro noise, I jumped on it because I love sheep, like I said. And so this is a Little House Needleworks pattern called Louise and Henry, and it's this cute little sheep that says wool, and I just really like the flowers as well. So I'm working on this in most of the called for colors. She had some replacements noted, and I started this yesterday actually, so I had a lot more time than normal in the afternoon and the evening, and my husband was both studying and then playing video games with his cousins, so I was hanging out with him and stitching and watching some Flosstube. But this is how far I've gotten. I didn't realize the sheep's eyes are different colors, so I haven't put those stitches in yet, so it kind of looks a little creepy almost with the white eyeballs. That is how far I've gotten on that one. And this is living in a beautiful project keeper by Tiger Lily Designs, who makes the most beautiful project keepers in bags. And I was lucky enough to score the first quarter project keeper club, I think she was calling it. and it's out of this beautiful fabric. The inside has spots for each individual floss color, and then a pocket, or I think you can get the whole thing as the floss. Or no, maybe it's both are the pockets. I don't remember. She also sells a PDF of the pattern of how to make these, which is a goal of mine further down the road once I'm a much more competent sewist. But I think it would be awesome to be able to pick out your own fabrics and even coordinate them seasonally or with your projects. I think that would be a lot of fun. So one day I'm hoping to make my own project bags, but today is not that day. And then the next work in progress that I have is another old one that I haven't touched in years at all. So I'll probably pick this up at some point this summer. It's living in a very fancy project bag, a Ziploc bag, with all the DMC floss and another piece of fabric for its partner. But this is another Little House Needleworks chart or pattern called the Roosters, and this is what it looks like. In the house that I lived in previous to this one, I had a chicken theme in my kitchen, and so my goal was to eventually have these hanging in my kitchen. And we no longer have a chicken theme, but that's okay. I think they're really cute anyway, so I'm going to finish them. I got pretty far on this one. I think just the border and the flowers, but the rooster itself is done. And then at some point I will start on the white rooster. But I'm a fan of these smaller pieces because I think they feel more manageable and a little less intimidating, especially now that I'm back into cross stitching. And I feel like a lot has changed in the last 10 to 15 years in the cross stitching world, and maybe I just didn't know what I was doing beforehand, but like I didn't remember needle minders being a thing. I definitely didn't have cute project bags. I used hoops, and I've been introduced to Q-snaps now, which are pretty nice. I would like to maybe learn how to stitch in hand, but I do, I think, what people call the Grandma Moses style of stabbing, so I'm not very fast, but that's okay. I don't really need to be fast. It's more so just for the enjoyment and to have pretty things to hang on the wall. But part of the reason I wanted to start having videos is selfishly to ask a bunch of questions, because I don't really feel like I know what I'm doing, or I'm curious to hear what other people's input is. So I definitely will have some questions for you all, and I hope that everyone is happy to weigh in or share some other expertise, because I would love to learn more. And I've already learned so much from other people's floss tubes as well. This next one is probably the largest piece I've ever started and worked on, and it's called Garden Fair by the Courtney collection. And it's pretty large. When I pulled out the fabric today, I tried to iron these so that they didn't look so terrible. Which, side note, I'm not good at ironing because both my husband and I work in healthcare and all we wear are scrubs, so I don't iron anything really ever other than crafting stuff. But when I pulled this out to iron it, I was a little appalled at how large the piece of fabric is, so this is probably going to take me quite a while to finish at some point. But this is how far I got when I was working on it. I didn't pick the black and red colorways that were called for. I really, at this point in my cross-stitching career, I think I was maybe an undergrad, or that sounds right, undergrad, maybe pharmacy school. So I didn't have much money, but I loved the hand over-dyed threads, and I really wanted to use one of those colors. So for the flower colors, I'm using this pretty pink or salmon-y color. And I, of course, lost all the floss tags for this. so I have no idea what it is, but I'm 99% sure it's the Gentle Arts because that's usually what my go-to was back when I was starting to cross stitch more. And I think it might be the rhubarb colorway, but I bought another skein of rhubarb from online a couple weeks ago just to compare, and they're not quite the same, so I don't know if it's just a difference in colorway or if I'm completely wrong about guessing which color this is, but I'm pretty sure that's right. I think it's probably just a difference in the fact that this is 10 years old and the other one is not. And then for the darker color, or like the stems of the flowers, etc., I decided to use a DMC colorway, and that is 934, which is like a really dark, rich green color. And so I haven't touched this in years, and to me the colors are really springy, and as I was sort of talking about earlier, I feel like spring might be on the way in the Midwest, or I would like to think it is. So I think I'll pick this back up and start working on it again to hopefully help chase away the winter weather. But this is gonna take me, I think, a while. And I'm not entirely sure how big it's gonna be when I finish. But based on the piece of fabric, it's going to be large. And again, I have no idea what kind of fabric this is or what the count is. I think I could probably try to, I should probably show you the front. I could probably try to measure the thread count and figure it out that way. But that is Garden Fare. And it is living in another project bag by Little Boat 88, which is the stained glass fabric from Beauty and the Beast, which was my absolute favorite movie growing up. I think I know every single word to the soundtrack. So this was very nostalgic for me to see in her Etsy shop, and I love it. And then, actually, speaking of Beauty and the Beast, last and least, I picked up a bunch of these at Hobby Lobby when I was into cross stitching in college, and foolishly thought I would finish all of them. Most of them now I have sold online because I realized I will never finish these. I don't even know if I'll finish one of them. But it is the Disney Dreams collection, which is the original art by Thomas Kincaid, which is those beautiful paintings with light. And these are full coverage cross stitch. And the first and only one that I had started was Beauty and the Beast, because that, again, is my favorite Disney movie. So this is the beautiful artwork by Thomas Kincaid. And I have not touched this in, I don't even, more than 10 years. Because the colors made my eyes cross, and maybe once I get back into cross stitching more and feel more confident, I'll be more excited about picking this up. But this is what I have, and actually the colors look really nice on the camera, so that's awesome. But I think at some point I was working in this area, and this is supposed to be some kind of invention from Belle's father, and I just remember I got way off on the chart, and the confetti, like one-off stitches, were really frustrating me, and so I just kind of packed it up and called it a decade, apparently. So I don't remember if I kept any of the other ones. I think I had like Bambi and Lion King and Snow White, and no, there's no way. I don't think I'm a full coverage cross-stitch person, and I don't know if this is really my aesthetic, but I love Beauty and the Beast, so I'm hoping that one day the spirit will move me to work on this again, because I do think it will be gorgeous. It's just got, I don't know, 3 cards of colors, hundreds of pages of charts. I don't know, like again, another beautiful Ziploc project bag. But we'll see, maybe one day. So those are all my cross-stitching whips, which, to be honest, I thought I had a lot more piled up. And then when I unpacked them, I really only had the Beauty and the Beast one, Garden, Fair, and the Home. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. I will, probably not this episode, but another episode, I can share some pictures of some of the wedding samplers that I've done. My brother and sister-in-laws in particular, I think turned out really beautifully, especially the way that it was framed. So I'll share that at another point. Let's see. And then I was going to talk a little bit about some options for other cross-stitching projects that I want to start. And so what feels like it would be more appropriate is something for spring as we move out of winter again. And I have the Rosewood Manor Quakers, the seasonal Quakers, and these are patterns that I've had forever, and I think they're gorgeous, and I would love to stitch all of them. And I have the fabric and the threads. I am pretty sure the fabric is what's called for in the correct thread count, but I'm going to double check before I start, because honestly I'm not sure. I've had them for so long and I didn't label anything because I was coming right back to it, which obviously I didn't. So I could start the Spring Quakers. I don't think this one has really any specialty stitches in it, which I don't know how to do any specialty stitches, so that's something else I'd like to learn. But the size of that one is a little bit intimidating, along with the number of colors that it uses. So I might go completely off season and start something for Halloween instead. And this is the Salem Sisters Apothecary, and this was, I think, a marketplace release last year, which is another thing I didn't know anything about until this past year. I don't remember there being like Nashville or market releases back when I was really into cross-stitching, but that was all pre-smartphones and pre-social media too, so maybe I just didn't know. Anyways, I am drawn to this one because I'm a pharmacist, and this is an apothecary, and it's got like flasks and a cauldron, and I think it's really cute. Plus the fact that it is one color really appeals to me. So I do have the threads and fabric for this as well. So I might just start this one, even though it's not really seasonally appropriate. I don't care. And I love this board. So I've been keeping an eye on the Etsy shop where they were selling these because I would love to finish it this way. So if you see that they're selling those, let me know, because I definitely want one. So those are the knitting and cross-stitching FOs and whips that I wanted to share with you today. And I'll have plenty more knitting whips to share, show and tell wise, as far as ones that are languishing. But before I go, I did have some questions for the group now that I'm back into cross-stitching and would like to learn more about how other people manage all their stash and start projects and all that good kind of stuff. So I guess my first question is, how do you all manage your inventory? Like, do you keep track of what fabric you have, what floss you have? Is there a way that you can manage it in an app or on your phone so that if you're out at a needlepoint store or a yarn store, you know exactly what you have at home and you're not second guessing yourself or buying duplicates? Because I think that would be really helpful to know exactly what kinds of floss I have and what count fabrics and what color fabrics if I'm out shopping and or perusing the internet and looking for more crafting supplies that way too. And then measuring thread count, I'm assuming I just use like a ruler and count how many threads there are in an inch. So I think I just have to motivate myself to count those tiny threads. Let's see if I had more questions too. I think that was just my big one, was how do you manage your inventory and do you keep track of it so that you know what you have? But this Thank you all for bearing with me. I know it's been almost an hour of me just talking to my phone, and personally I usually enjoy podcasts or Flosstubes or what have you with two people, so that there's a little more back and forth and some chemistry. So maybe I'll find a friend who wants to join me, or drag my husband in here someday. He doesn't knit, but he has heard me talk about knitting so much that you would think he knows how to knit from the way he talks. So that could be kind of entertaining. And I'm hoping to do this on kind of a bi-weekly basis, every other week. I think it'll be good for me to join the community and try to, I don't know, just keep track of what I'm working on and keep myself accountable, and be able to have these videos to look back on maybe someday in the future when I can't remember who I made for what or what yarn it was, and etc. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy this video, and I also hope the ums are fewer and more far between next time around, and that the quality just improves. But thank you again for bearing with me, and I'll see you in a couple weeks after Synchronized Skating Nationals are over, and I will fill you in on how that goes. Until then, take care.